If you haven't used it in 15 years, do you think you can donate it? Hey friends, welcome back. My mother-in-law Victoria is very organized and often calls me in July to ask what my kids want for Christmas. Her pantry, however, was a bit of a hot mess. She said it best when she said that her pantry was like her junk drawer of her house. Victoria and I have had a running joke for years about her letting me have at her pantry to give it a good organizing. She has been doing a lot of decluttering recently. So this year for Christmas, my husband Tyler and I were trying to think of meaningful gifts for friends and family. Tyler and his mom were talking about this and she suggested I come organize her pantry. So we made it into a Christmas gift for her and my father-in-law Dana. We gave them a gift card to spend on containers, bins, or other things that would help get the pantry organized. I asked Victoria for some pictures ahead of time so I could start thinking of some ideas, and I knew I was going to have my work cut out for me when she sent them. I could immediately see many duplicates of several things. I'll be the first to admit I lucked out with having great in-laws. We love spending time with them, and I have to say we had so much fun decluttering and organizing the pantry. We did a lot of laughing along the way, and it was a fun way to spend time together. You'll notice my kids were in and out a lot during this, as well as Tyler and Dana making an occasional appearance as well. One of the things that made this pantry makeover such a success was Victoria's willingness to be brutally honest with herself about what she was going to use and what she wasn't going to use. She easily could have held on to so much more, but she was pretty ruthless about what didn't make sense to keep anymore. Because of that, we were able to make a ton of headway and really give this pantry an overhaul. Stick around till the end and you will see some extremely satisfying before and after photos. In my video, 7 Principles for Organizing Any Space, I reference my 7 essential rules to successfully transforming a space. Those 7 principles are: declutter first, like things go together always, create zones, allow room for change or slight expansion, label, make this space work for you, and embrace open spaces. While we go through this pantry video, I invite you to look for the ways that we put all these principles into action.
Just kidding. Okay.
No, she used to have a picture going, oh brother, this is gonna be forever.
So we began with taking everything out of the pantry. As with any space that you're decluttering and organizing, I am a firm believer that you need to touch each and every single item. It is too easy to leave things in a space and pass them over. So while we did put some items back in the same place, we physically touched and talked about each item. When you touch each item, it really does engage your brain to make a decision about whether this is something you want to keep handling or if this is something that you need to let go of. Because there was so much in this pantry, we took it a shelf at a time, and we even got a laundry basket to help get everything out quicker. We would bring the contents of one shelf to the island and then go through it from there. We were looking for things that weren't going to get used, things that she had forgotten that she had, and things that were expired. Okay, so let's go through to see if there's any spices that you just don't use.
You notice how she's got the sleeves up? This is
I
serious.
think Dana just needs to take this out to the trash and just dump it, but leave the...
One of the first things that we did was establish a box for donations and to get the trash can ready. Dana's work was collecting food for the less fortunate, so he was going to take anything that had not passed its best by date to his work to donate.
I'm keeping those ones. You're
All
not
of
gonna
these?
Yes. I
Can't talk you down one.
No. We've already talked you down one that was already open.
If you find one that your house has been broken into, and that's all they took. So we donated what we could and threw away anything that was far enough past its expiration date that it couldn't be donated anywhere. Dana was such a good sport about this. Change can be really hard, and sometimes it's really hard to declutter things that you spent money on and that seem perfectly good. And since we did get rid of a lot of duplicates of things, I think the takeaway for both Dana and Victoria was that having an organized pantry was going to make it easier to see what they had, and there was going to be significantly less buying because they knew what they already had, as well as less waste because things could be used up before they went bad instead of getting lost and forgotten about. So while there had been money spent on things that we were decluttering, keeping those items wasn't going to bring the money back, nor was it going to prevent any overbuying in the future. Getting things out of the pantry that they weren't going to use, whether because they were expired or because they didn't use them anymore, and getting the pantry organized was the only way that this pantry would be able to function for them. We began with the spices. There were so many spices. Now, most spices are still good after their best by date. Obviously, they lose some of their potency. So we did keep anything that was going to get used. But like I said earlier, Victoria was really honest about what items she never used and which items she would actually use. There were a lot of duplicate items in this pantry. Victoria had admitted that she had bought a lot of duplicates since she didn't know exactly what she had and didn't have and didn't want to be caught without. There were also things in here that had been purchased for something specific that they had never ended up using them for. And also there were items in here that no longer fit their lifestyle. Another thing we looked for is things that didn't have a place at all in the pantry and maybe needed to be relocated somewhere else in the house. For example, Dana and Victoria had the extra house paint inside the pantry. So we relocated that to a cupboard in the laundry room area.
Oh man, I'm not excited about this.
Here, you gotta...
Yeah, I wouldn't put that in my mouth. You're doing really good, Mom.
She's doing great.
Yeah.
From here, we made sure the shelves were wiped down. This is probably the only time that the shelves will be accessible, so we had to take advantage of that.
There's any cheesecloth.
Yes, we do, and we know exactly where it is. It's right here.
Really?
Before we headed to get bins, we made sure that we had gone through everything and that we knew what categories we wanted to have. They do a lot of grilling, so right from the start, they knew that they wanted a bin for seasonings, rubs, skewers, anything like that. We made a list of bins that we would need and also talked about dividing the pantry into zones. The reason I found it helpful to divide into zones when you're organizing is so that you're giving yourself plenty of space for like items. My number one organizing tip is like things go together always. So by dividing the pantry into zones, we could decide what categories or bins went in each zone. It keeps the organization cohesive, it keeps like things together, and it helps you have enough space so that things aren't crammed in there. I've done an entire video about some of my favorite organizing products, and I'll link that below. But the gift card that I gave Dana and Victoria was to Target, since I know that they have baskets and containers that are durable and that they work great for organizing. Victoria and I went to Target. I made some recommendations and she found the containers that she wanted in the color that she wanted. Well, let's see.
How much are they? 7?
So these ones are a little bit, I think these ones are a little bit different. I don't have the white ones. Oh, is it?
Oh yeah, it's the same size.
Okay. That's good, because I have a lot of these that I really like.
So those are 5.
I mean, is there anything like these cutaway, like those cutaway ones for anything?
Yeah.
So these ones, like I said, they have a little bit of give. They're really low profile, but they're big enough that things kind of stand up.
Like, how many of these would I need? Because I could go like maybe get 4 of these like that, and then I can put them in like this on my.
Yeah.
How many can I get in this way? Let's see. Okay, so yeah, I could easily go too deep on those. But different categories. Okay.
So anything you need, these are a 3-pack. Anything that we had that was like macro organization.
It would have been nice if they had something taller that went way back like this, that I could put all those, like my taco seasoning packets and everything, because that's about the width right there, but you want them to go all the way back.
I have a solution for that, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, so you think 4 will be good?
Yeah, because I can always get more coming back.
Okay. We estimated that we'd need about 3 spice racks, but we only ended up needing 1. Once we got the spices decluttered and organized, we ended up putting any extra spices up on the very top So that freed up the space on the spice rack. So that meant she was able to return the other 2 unused spice racks. One thing to note is that we did the cleaning and decluttering first before we went looking for containers. We did, like I said, overestimate how many spice racks we would need since we weren't sure how much space the spices would take up. But everything else we estimated right on, and we had the perfect amount of containers. Whenever I used to organize a space, I used to get the containers first, and then I'd figure out how to use them later. And you know what? I ended up with a lot of container clutter. Yes, container clutter is a thing. And once I decluttered my home later, that meant decluttering a lot of containers too. And containers aren't exactly cheap.
How you feeling?
Pretty organized.
I mean, I don't know. Does Dana keep his Diet Coke?
No, we just leave them in the boxes and then he puts them in the fridge downstairs.
The thing about these is they're so pretty, but they're so pricey, you know?
Like these ones are clear, but you're going to soon see all the scratches.
Yeah.
Oh, they have the black ones. You see these ones?
Those are $20.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
don't,
we got like
do those,
better than that.
yeah. I can see.
Plus all the spices are going to cover everything up anyway.
Yeah.
Once we got back to Victoria's house, we began putting everything back into the pantry based on the zones that we had created. We also found it helpful to start a box for things that Victoria wasn't sure she wanted to get rid of, but that she didn't think she would need. Normally, I would label a box like this for about 3 months out, but Victoria wanted to give it 6 months, so we labeled the box June 2024, at which time she will simply throw the box and anything in it away. I've used the same strategy for myself many times, and it is a good way to get things out of circulation. Kind of an out of sight, out of mind type concept. And then when you get to the date on the box, if you haven't reached for anything inside, then those items are obvious items to get rid of. I've done this in my pantry, but I've also done it with various other areas of my home as well. This also works well for items that you want to donate by a specific date. There was even more decluttering that happened once Victoria realized she didn't want to use up precious container space with items she wasn't for sure going to use. Like I mentioned earlier, when we began putting the spices back in, we decided to keep one of each spice down on the main spice rack and then put any duplicate spices in a bin at the top shelf with the rest of the extras. Victoria had to be really honest about what spices she had bought for a specific purpose that she wasn't going to use. We eventually started a box for her friend who loves to cook, and she was going to check with her friend to see if she wanted some of these spices, special flours, and other cooking and baking items that Victoria had decided she wasn't going to use. I have talked about this in organizing videos before, how there are so many beautiful pantries on the internet, but what you see that is Pinterest worthy may not actually work for you. My biggest goal for this pantry was for it to be customized to Dana and Victoria. It needed to be a workhorse for them. So using universal organizing principles was important, but not trying to make it into a trendy Pinterest pantry. I have a video that I will link below about 7 principles for organizing any space. We decided that the very top shelf would be for extra items. So anything that was a duplicate would go here. Victoria had quite a few spices that she had bought extra of because she had bought them not being able to tell if she already had them at home. So the duplicate spices that she knew she would use went in a bin on the top shelf. She had quite a bit of onion soup mix because she uses that often, so we put that on the top shelf too. Basically anything that was a duplicate was stored on the top shelf. The top shelf is the hardest to reach, so it is usually not prime real estate. I told Victoria she should save the prime real estate for things she uses daily, things that she wanted to put on eye level or within reach. Also on the top shelf, we stored things she doesn't use as much. She has a crock for making sauerkraut, but that isn't something that she uses frequently, so she was fine with it being on the top shelf and being a little bit more inconvenient to get to. Same thing with canning supplies and snacks for grandkids. My kids are the closest geographically and we live an hour away, so snacks for grandkids was something that could be a little bit more out of reach. I cannot stress how important it is to organize your pantry in a way that caters to you and your unique needs and habits. Pinterest is a great place to get ideas, but trying to model a pantry after someone else's is just going to be an exercise in frustration. Dana and Victoria eat really healthy, so they had quite a few things in here that were specific to their lifestyle. For example, she needed a bin for sugar alternatives. Another was a shelf that she wanted for specialty items, so different seeds, grains, and powders that she uses for cooking and different things. We also made a bin for health supplements for her to keep her wheatgrass powder, her collagen, and other things like that. One thing it's helpful to note here is that you don't need to put everything in a container. We tried to use containers for things that literally needed to be contained and not for things that could stand alone on a shelf. We use containers a lot for categories of things with small items that would get lost on a shelf, and in other areas we let things in jars or other food storage type containers stand alone on the shelf, knowing that the shelf was zoned to keep these items organized. While we didn't have a lot of empty space to work with, we tried to fit things in comfortably so that they could easily be put back into their homes. The one thing we did not move out of the pantry was her cans of soup. She had quite a few of these. As we put things back into the pantry, we did move the soup cans down onto a lower shelf, but we touched and examined each can to make sure that they were all still good. We also did not move the large appliances out of the pantry since she knew she wanted to keep them on the floor of the pantry. However, we went through and touched each and every single appliance and item and moved them out a bit and discussed whether it was something that she was still using, and she did get rid of a few things from this bottom area. If you haven't used it in 15 years, do you think you can donate it? I had found a food processor attachment that was still in its protective covering. Victoria had had the food processor it went to for about 15 years. I asked her if she wanted to get rid of the attachment since she hadn't ever used it. She said she had kept it because it was part of the original set. I assured her that many times when decluttering, I have also broken up a set or donated an attachment that I've never used. So don't be afraid to get rid of something that you never use, even if it does go to a set or if it came with something that you are actively using. Keeping it around just adds clutter, but it does not guarantee that you are actually going to start using it. Once we got everything put back in, it took us a while to try and figure out different spots and to see which spot was best for each item. So we did quite a bit of moving things around. Once we did that, it was time to put the finishing touches on. This is one of the funnest parts of organizing. I brought my label maker as well as some clip-on label holders that I'll link below. And we did label some of the actual shelves with the zone names just to really reinforce where everything went. I highly recommend using labels so that people in your home can also know where things go. Also, even if you live alone, labeling can be so helpful for your brain to learn more quickly where things go.
Wow, look at your eyes. Oh, there it is. Look at, I found it.
I love it.
I have to say I had so much fun doing this pantry makeover and overhaul with Victoria. We laughed a lot, We made a lot of good memories. Her pantry is functioning so much better. Every time my husband or I talk to her in the weeks that have followed, she mentions something about how much better her pantry is functioning. I would love to hear in the comments below, what was your favorite part of this pantry overhaul? Was there anything interesting that you noticed that I didn't mention? Maybe you have a pantry that also looks like this. Maybe it's not your pantry, maybe it's a different area. If so, I hope this gave you some inspiration and some ideas and maybe a little bit of motivation to declutter and organize. Thanks for watching, friends. Have a great day.